So, a few weeks ago, Cleveland was in the spotlight as the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame hosted this year's induction ceremony. It was an exciting evening honoring a really amazing, talented group of inductees for this year. And today, we are going to get a behind the scenes insights into the ceremony, as well as the exhibit honoring this year's class of inductees. So today we are going to be joined by Greg Harris. He was named President and Chief Executive Officer of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum in December of 2012. Greg joined the Rock Hall in 2008. Before joining, he spent 14 years at the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum in Cooperstown, New York. His passion for music made this opportunity to shift from baseball to rock and roll an incredibly compelling choice. In the 1980s, he and a partner founded, owned, and operated the Philadelphia Record Exchange, a retail store that specialized in selling rare, used, and independent records. He also served as a road manager for a nationally touring group and played guitar in garage bands. And his go-to albums range from Exile on Main Street by the Rolling Stones, London Calling by the Clash, and Horses by Patti Smith, just to name a few. Also joining our conversation today is Nwaka Onwusa, who was promoted to Chief Curator and Vice President of Curatorial Affairs in September of 2020. She provides leadership and vision to the curatorial division, which includes permanent, traveling, and digital exhibitions, museum redesign creative projects, artifact collections, and library and archives. Music has been at the center of her life ever since she was young, growing up in California. Prior to joining the Rock Hall in 2019, she spent a decade researching, developing, and curating more than 20 impactful exhibits for the Grammy Museum at LA Live, as well as satellite and traveling exhibits. She specializes in creating experiences that are informative and immersive, and that celebrate the diversity of musical expression. And her go-to albums include Amazing Grace by Aretha Franklin, A Seat at the Table by Solange, and The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, among many more. So today we are going to begin with Greg, who will share about the ceremony. Nwaka will then discuss the exhibit, and then we will open it up for questions. So I am going to turn it over to Greg to get us started.
Hey, good morning, all. Sorry I was running a little bit late. I was a victim of multi-tiered authentication that was needed. And I'm glad I have it, but it was a hassle. So if there's any tech folks out there, I respect you, but I was cursing you a little while ago. Thank you. I'm sorry I missed the intro. I caught the tail end of Nwaka's, and she's just one amazing example of the talented team we have over at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I appreciate the chance to speak to this group. I see some familiar faces out there. Hey, Bill. Hey, Kay. And, Leadership Cleveland class of 2010. Of course, the best class ever. And so I think that the idea is to share a bit about the induction from the broader perspective of a citywide and how these things really fit into what we do every day at the museum. And then Nwaka is going to really share the more glamorous stuff about building an exhibit and working with these incredible artists like LL Cool J and Tina Turner and Jay-Z and folks like that. So I'll be the warm-up act for Nwaka. But, this year's induction was on October 30th over at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. It was the first time it was ever held there. And really, it wasn't just one night of activity. It was a whole week of events. And I think I want to back it up. I'm not going to go into the tired story of everybody closing down during COVID. We all know that. But this induction was supposed to have happened in 2020. And we were doing it at Public Auditorium in the spring of 2020. And it was to be the return of the inductions. We, in the first 17 years of inductions happening, they happened in Cleveland once. We brought them back in 2009, first time in Cleveland, first time to a public audience at Public Auditorium, then in 12, then in 15, then in 18, and we were bringing it back in 20. Of course, the world fell apart for a while, and we didn't have the inductions in 20. But we had pretty much already sold out. So we had sold all of our tables, all of our sponsorships, all of our seats, and we poured it all over to Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, which was a pretty great position to be in because we weren't really in sales mode. we were in execution mode. And the arena itself was the perfect place to bring a COVID era show. It has incredible ventilation. It has incredible security. It has, ways to segregate backstage from front of house and all the things that you need for a major event. So it was clearly the right move, and it was the right thing to do. Well, on that note, I will add that Induction, we had a infectious disease consultant that's been advising the museum for the last 2 years. Dr. Keith Armitage over at University Hospitals has been an amazing resource to our team for everything we've done. And even Induction, we called on him. During Induction evening, everybody that was backstage in the days leading up to Induction was tested every single day, even if they were vaccinated. And every performer, every crew member, every production person. And then we asked for vaccinations for front of house for all attendees to show it. So our 14,750 people that attended, they all provided proof of vaccination to come to the event. All right, that's the Saturday night. We'll get to that. The fun thing about inductions is that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame needs a lot of partners to do this. So in building the stack of resources to make it happen, we partner with Destination Cleveland. They are, they're keenly interested in the event because we fill every hotel room in town. They've been a partner with us on this from the very beginning, and they are incredible. And they bring in site selectors from all over the country that are event people that want to look at bringing events to different cities. They use it as a cultivation event. They bring in travel writers to go to the induction. We give them a bunch of tickets. We work together to make sure all these people have a great time, and we sell Cleveland. So that's Destination Cleveland. The state of Ohio jumped in with an award because this event helps promote our state. In a way, it's our pure Michigan. And they stepped in from tourism funding to help fund the induction. The city of Cleveland stepped in because they help us with a number of things, including road closures, permitting, all that sort of great stuff that you need. And then the county is in the mix because of a bed tax that's dedicated to support the induction. A bunch of Northeast Ohio corporations support the inductions, whether it's PNC Bank, even Medical Mutual, and it's a long list of things. I'm not going to put slides up and talk about it. And then it next moves out to individuals and foundations. So the Gun Foundation supports it, the Cleveland Foundation supports it. And the reason all these groups come together to support it is because it's a massive marquee event for our region. Typically cities bid on stuff like this. It's ours every couple of years when we're able to foot the bill to do it. And we need all these partners to make it happen. So we have all these partners on funding this. Then we build it out and we develop community partners. So for the induction week, we did programs and activities with our friends at Cleveland Public Library. You probably know they have 26 branches around the city, and Felton, one of our Leadership Cleveland classmates, does an amazing job. We deliver programs through the Cleveland Public Libraries to Cleveland residents for Induction Week. In fact, we do it all year long, but we amp it up during inductions. Cleveland Public Library, we worked with we work with Boys and Girls Club by collecting instruments through a group called Hungry for Music. Those instruments all get distributed to needy schools and places around town for students to perform and to play and to learn and to grow. We also do things at the museum in conjunction with a bunch of clubs and venues around town. We want it to feel like Induction Week, not just Induction Night. And so we worked with and provided resources to the Bop Stop, to Mahal's, to the Happy Dog, to the Music Box Supper Club, to the Agora, to the House of Blues, to the Beachland Ballroom, to the Grog Shop. And again, it's this idea of this week of music and energy for our town, as opposed to a one and done Saturday night performance. And what we provide to those groups, sometimes it's direct grants to help them with programming. For all, we put them in the umbrella and we put our marketing machine behind it for induction. So everywhere we're promoting induction, we're promoting these venues as well as a kind of stay and play packages. And then those are all tied to sort of the idea of Induction Week. Then just to back it up a hair, when we say Induction Week, we mean Induction Week. We kick it off the prior weekend, and we did it with a free day for any Ohio resident based on our state of Ohio support. Anybody from the state of Ohio got in free. We delivered programs that day, live music. We had regional artists performing in the museum, on our plaza, indoors and outdoors. And we kind of create a festival environment. And that's when we give the locals the first peek at the new inductee exhibit. And there's media moments and things like that. And we kind of carry that through the entire week. So again, it builds this energy and this dynamism for the entire city. And it's not just happening at the museum and not just happening at the venue, but it's happening all over town. If you got off an airplane that week, you'd see our branding everywhere. If you drove into town from the airport, you'd see billboards. Downtown, a lot of businesses gave us inventory and we blasted up Induction branding everywhere. And we kind of created this halo of induction that allowed the whole city to shine and grow. When it was go time, and we did the event that Saturday night, in the first 24 hours of our induction, there were 12.75 billion media impressions for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, Ohio. That's the kind of energy that you're building to delivering. And then, you know, the evening itself, I don't know, I don't have gallery view on. I'm seeing Rachel primarily. I'm going to go to gallery view here so I can see everybody. I'm curious, who all attended the induction? Oh, I wish I saw more hands. It was, hey Jill, it was a pretty magical night, and the venue shined. The artists were just off the charts. There's a lot of love from the stages, connecting generations, connecting different genres of music, all under the umbrella of rock and roll. And then in the audience itself, all those supporters I mentioned, plus all of the ticket buyers. It was I hate to say you missed it, but you did. It was a pretty magical night that we had not been experiencing live music in a grand scale the way that we did at the induction. We've all probably been listening to a lot of stuff on these little things or in isolation, and to do it as a communal group was just off the charts and powerful. You know, that's a little bit of the scope of what we do. For the operationally oriented people, you know, we work on this for a good 6 months before and start mapping all these things out. When you include the sales mode, it's more like 9 months, because you're selling and you're growing and you're putting it all together. And we could not have been more thrilled with the outcome and with the results. And being in Cleveland for the week with every hotel room sold out, lots of activity going on. And then the follow-up of the praise that we heard from the artist, from the attendees, from the sponsors, from the donors, was pretty off the charts. And we kind of want to reflect that back, because all these community partners, they delivered, and that's what helped us shine. We had even different groups that helped us with different aspects. There's a company in Cleveland called JBE, Jamie Belkin Events. They killed it on our VIP handling. All of the work with the production crews, with the other teams around town. We had vendors and consultants and people at the venue. Aramark is a big food service provider at the venue and at our place. They knocked it out of the park. And just radio partners, TAM, Magic, and 20 others. TV partners over at Channel 3 and Channel 5 and Fox were remarkable. And it really is, it's a coming together, it's a collective. So I guess I wanted to share that broader perspective with you. I know we're going to take some questions, and I'm happy to do that right now. But if I flick the slide up of community supporters, it would look like a phone book. That's really the level and the extent. I should have put it up. We put a full page spread in the Plain Dealer the day after induction, and we had to cut off the supporters at 50,000 and above to make sure they fit on the page and they really looked right. It was a massive endeavor, and we're really thrilled at the results. We're honored at the partnership and very, very grateful for the Northeast Ohio community stepping up and helping us do this. Rachel, do you want to go to Nwaka, or you want me to take questions, or We didn't really dress rehearse this. So Rachel, is this the sort of level of detail you wanted and where we're at?
Absolutely. This is great. And I think let's go to Nwaka next, and then we'll do a combined Q&A near the end.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
You already did a great intro for Nwaka. So she does not need a hype man. But we're thrilled that we recruited Nwaka away from sunny Southern California and brought her to Cleveland, Ohio. It was the Grammy Museum's loss and it was Cleveland's gain. And if you walk through the museum, most of what you see in even a short tenure, Nwaka has had a strong hand in shaping and growing. So I'm thrilled to warm up for Nwaka any day. Nwaka, you're on.
Greg, thank you. Thank you so much. And truly, it's an honor to be presenting and sharing our insights from this year's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction. I am just still beaming. It's amazing to see the comments that came in to those who attended the induction ceremony. I was floored because this was my first Cleveland induction. And it was just truly, from coming from Grammy Awards and seeing those, our show was, energy in the room, the magic, and truly to feel what our mission statement is, feeling the power of rock and roll. You felt the power of rock and roll if you were in that building. And that night, and what we did with the show, from the exhibition, our curatorial team, and just across the board, it was felt throughout the city. So I'm grateful to be here in Cleveland. Honored to call myself a Clevelander and to lead and curate this exhibit during a time, Greg set it up with what we're coming out of from this pandemic. Curating through COVID is what we've been calling it in-house, and we've excelled and been able to do that under Greg's leadership, being able to pivot and take advantage of our virtual space, pivot and have our exhibits, our collection, our library live in the digital space has been really impactful. So really excited about that. So gonna get into our inductees. It's not factual to say this is the largest class. We've had, larger classes earlier years of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but it's been a while since we've inducted a number of 13 inductees. This was the most inductees and very historic. First time we had a female inducted twice was in 2019 with Stevie Nicks. This year we did it twice with two phenomenal women. So honoring Tina Turner, Carole King. These are two females who were inducted twice into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, making history. The Go-Go's were inducted, Jay-Z, the Foo Fighters, Todd Rundgren. That was all in our performance category. Then moving into our early influence categories were Kraftwerk, Charlie Patton, Gil Scott-Heron. And then for musical excellence, LL Cool J was inducted, Billy Preston, Randy Rhoads. And finally, in our Ahmet Ertegun Award category is Clarence Avant. And I would be remiss if I just didn't acknowledge this now. It was just announced that Clarence's wife, Jacqueline Avant, was recently killed tragically in a home invasion robbery early this morning. So I do want to say that at this moment and just take a second to honor her. We all work closely with the Avants. I've worked closely with that family, and it's crazy, things happen. But anyway, I just have to acknowledge that at this moment and respect her. So we had, a powerhouse induction class this year, and putting this exhibit together, coming off of the heels of induction of a severe pandemic. We're more outside now, but we wanted to make sure that this installation, this exhibit, made a huge splash. So by pushing our exhibit to kind of open our induction week, to Greg's point, wanting to activate and energize the region and folks who are, pilgrimage to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame to celebrate this induction class. It was highly anticipated with the show not happening. So having this exhibit come to fruition. I can tell you the behind the scenes with shipping from across the country. I mean, artifacts, all of these things have been impacted of how we travel and get pieces to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Everyone's talking about the supply demand. We were definitely impacted by that in our division. So for some things that would maybe take a week to get to the Rock Hall, it was now taking a month to get certain pieces to the museum. So a little insight, you know, by pushing even our opening to be closer to, you know, pivot in these moments. Again, curating through COVID, we had to be creative with those moments. But juggling this large of a class, coming from years where we've inducted 8 or 9 inductees, to juggle 13 with a group, 2 large groups, the Go-Go's and the Foo Fighters. And then you're juggling all the dynamic energy from all the other inductees was quite a challenge. We split up. Definitely we have a team of curators, and we essentially tackle this together with this team, this amazing team. We designed the exhibit in-house. We have a phenomenal designer on staff, and all of our preparators and collection team. It was just go time. We don't find out who's inducted until you all find out. So we're off to the races once these names are all announced, to then reach out and collect. So it's really a highly anticipated moment across the board, and a very exciting time to collect. The great thing about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is, yes, we have over 35,000 artifacts of clothing and you know, other tertiary items in our collection. But when you look at our library and archive in totality, it's over 1 million artifacts that we have in our collection that we are responsible for preserving the legacy for and displaying at any one time. So it was beautiful to say that of these inductees, we've collected and had a focus on collecting for Tina Turner or sharing these stories for folks who we already consider legends of rock and roll. So it was beautiful to say from our collection, we've had pieces to celebrate Tina Turner in our collection. One dress that you'll see if you haven't gone down to the museum is the red dress that she wore in her private dancer tour, which was given to MTV VJ during an interview, and then loaned and actually donated to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I mean, we have these amazing stories in music that are currently on display. I think the magic that we saw when we opened the exhibit was fans. We had lines of people just waiting to check out the exhibit, and waiting with the Foo Fighters, who were also checking out the exhibit and touring at the same time. So it was one of those moments where, hey, Angela Bassett is touring to see Tina Turner at this moment, and fans are, wow, reacting to that. So it was just what Greg mentioned, having the artist, having this exhibit, having our city, having this beacon here on the lake, celebrating music history at its finest on display. I mean, the artifacts, the curatorial part of this truly is the evidence that this musical magic happened, and to see the reactions from those who were inducted, whether it's the estates or the artists involved. I mean, the reaction from the Foo Fighters when they first saw their exhibit was pretty phenomenal. I mean, they were geeked out knowing that, hey, we ship these things here, but to see it on display in that way was pretty magical.
Yeah. Hey, Nwaka, you're being very also discreet and kind. It's easy. The Foo Fighters sent us enough stuff to fill an entire museum, and
Yes.
had to pick out, you know, the 10 items out of this dozens that would tell the story, and then hopefully they'd like what they saw, and they loved it. Another cool artifact story, Nwaka, you might talk about, you know, the Go-Go's were inducted, and when they installed their exhibit, there was a blank spot for something that was later added. Nwaka?
Yes. So that exciting moment, definitely with the Go-Go's. So we held a blank spot, and this is actually for 2 artists. So we did this for the Go-Go's and LL Cool J. So it was the guitar, and I'm blanking on which member of the Go-Go's.
I think it was Kathy Valentine's
was
bass.
it Kathy's? Okay. Yes. Okay. So basically, during the show, Kathy's guitar, she's like, hey, I'm going to be playing this guitar. However, I want this guitar in the exhibit. So we had to hold this space for the guitar to be played. And we're moving around frantically like, okay, how are we going to collect this from you right after you perform on stage? So we had our collections, our director of collections backstage at this moment, grabbing the guitar from Kathy after media preview. And we're kind of freaking out like, okay, we want to open this exhibit, want to highlight all the guitars. We had it for a moment, but obviously she's playing it at the induction ceremony, but we safely transported this guitar back to the museum. So meanwhile, while the show is going on, we're running around backstage collecting these artifacts. Truly, I mean, they're living, breathing things. So this part of music history is now saying, hey, Kathy's guitar that she played at the actual induction and on many of her tours, these are working instruments. It's not that these are like even the piano that's installed now of Carole King. She plays and composes on that very piano, and she's letting us borrow it for a year. I mean, it's pretty amazing. I was backstage and collected the ring also that LL Cool J and the mic stand that he was performing on during his induction moment as well. So, I mean, it's absolutely powerful. I mean, grabbing the ring, feeling the warmth of that ring, putting it into the museum exhibit was pretty dynamic to actually do that. But to Greg's point, I mean, sifting through and curating, paring down these exhibits in hopes that the inductees actually love it and seeing it in this moment was a huge, terrifying task to make sure that everyone's happy with how they're represented and that we pick the right things. But it is that fine balance of artist relations and going back and forth, but also keeping that authenticity of the story and the narrative that we're trying to tell as the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So some really dynamic moments. Another special moment we had with LL Cool J is he has his car, his Audi 5000, which is actually on display. So if you've ever heard the term, I'm Audi 5000, that was coined by the GOAT himself. That term, the GOAT, is also coined by LL Cool J. So we have all of this musical and cultural colloquialisms from someone who changed the game, the GOAT himself, LL Cool J. He brings in his Audi 5000, which was sitting in his mom's home for 35 years. He hadn't seen it since the debut of his second album, Bad, which he's standing on the top, on the hood of this actual Audi. The car was, I mean, there's a video we could share with you guys just to preview it, but the car was, I mean, rodent ridden. The paint was chipping, has gone through several storms. This car has been living in New Jersey somewhere in a suburb. And the car was restored by Unique Automotives. If you ever watch Hit My Ride with Exhibit and Will Castro of Unique Automobiles basically restored that vehicle. It is now in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We unveiled it with LL Cool J. It was his first time seeing it at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So if you go on the social media, a lot of these first reactions, again, historic, captured at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with these inductees. So we had some very special artifact moments that were highlights to this year that made this year just incredibly special. So those are some of the moments that I'm thinking of. I think, Greg, thanks for bringing up the artifact swaps there and those transitions that happen and make our exhibits really special for fans and for the musicians at the same time. So a great impact, again, to Greg's point, the impressions that we received of folks sharing, artists sharing about this display was really exciting. The exhibit is up for a year, and then we transition to the next class once that's announced. So we're looking forward to 2022.
Yeah, the cadence for that, everyone, is right now, we're about to enter December, and we just finished the broadcast. The inductions were broadcast on HBO earlier this month, and they're still available on HBO Max. I encourage you to check them out if you have that and you want to see them. There's also a very interesting video that's out. There's a ton of fan videos that were at the event, but there's a video out at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's YouTube channel, and it's the tribute that was done for Jay-Z. And it involves a whole bunch of interesting people from all different arenas, mainly entertainment, but different arenas, each sampling a Jay-Z lyric to complete a song. And I don't want to ruin the surprise, but take a look. There's some incredible folks that are part of that, and they're all paying their respects to somebody that means a lot to them, and somebody whose art means a lot to so many, which is pretty great. But the cycle, in case you're wondering, in late January, a group that's the nominating committee will meet, and in that committee meeting, we each nominate 2. And there's about 30 people in the meeting, maybe 28. They're historians, they're music writers, there's other performers. Dave Grohl is part of that committee. Steven Van Zandt from the E Street Band is part of that committee. Tom Morello of Rage is part of that. And everybody nominates 2, and we create a ballot of about 17. And that ballot goes out to about 1,000 voters, of which the single largest voting body are all the other inductees. So, Smokey Robinson votes, and the members, and Bob Weir votes from the Grateful Dead, and Madonna votes, and Springsteen, they all vote. And as well as some writers, some historians, some others that are involved in music. And when all those ballots come back, the top 5 or 6 vote getters are elected to the Hall of Fame. And then our whole cycle starts again. Nwaka's team starts collecting from them. They put an exhibit together at the museum. We kind of get our machine cranked up again, and there's steps in that process, including some online fan voting and some other things that fan engagement and meant to encourage involvement and really keep it top of mind for people during the nomination election process. All right, Rachel, we're open for questions. Is that fair?
Absolutely. I think we all probably could agree. We can continue just to listen to all of the stories and all of the behind the scenes. But we have had some questions come in. So I would love to start with getting each of your thoughts around what was the most exciting part of the induction or this year's class for each of you.
All right, Nwaka, you want to go first, or you want me to go?
You know what? Okay, I'll go really quick. I think one of the moments that was really exciting to me was to watch our fan vote, our virtual fan vote, just to see the energy that went into that selection. What was peaking was Tina Turner and Fela Kuti. And it was just really dynamic to see the scope, the broadness, the vastness of, who was on that ballot for that fan vote, and to see, at certain peaks when we're asleep here in the US, Nigerian votes were going up. So we were tracking all of these things. So to have this data to see who's watching, who's voting, who's interested in these artists, I think it was a great learning and a unique experience. I'm partially Nigerian, I'm half Nigerian, I'm Nigerian American. And just to see that, and a fan of Fela, my dad and having family, it was really crazy. And so, yeah, Lenora, the Tina versus Fela, but it's like, damn, this is hard. But it was really awesome to watch that as a breaking point. It was an exciting point I think, for all of our staff to just watch the trends. That was pretty unique.
Boy, Nwaka, I can't be that focused on one thing. It's a sea of really great stuff. I'll share a couple, just quick snapshots. One was Nwaka referenced the Friday of induction. We had about an hour and a half window, might be losing track of days there, where we invited artists to come see their plaque. And we had LL in the building, checking it out, taking photos with his family and friends. We had Clarence Avant doing it. We had the members of the Go-Go's. Foo Fighters blew in and ran up the back stairs, and they're taking photos. And, that kind of vibe was just great to see them as fans. And invariably, when they're in the Hall of Fame, they're looking at the others that are inducted, and it's bringing it home to them. Another high point was at the there was a group of this called the National Independent Venue Association. This is places like the Happy Dog and Grog Shop and the House of Blues all over the country. And this group met for 2 years during COVID, twice a week on Zoom calls like this, in order to lobby Congress to get funding for their sector. And they were falling through the cracks. As businesses, they weren't qualifying in the same way for PPP, and they weren't restaurants, they were venues. And they got some stuff passed that was called the Save Our Stages Act, which was a lifeline to that industry. And every industry was hit hard, but the event industry, it wasn't at like 40% unemployment. It was at like 95% unemployment. It was completely staggering how many people that normally work, whether it's weddings, parties, concerts, stagehands, none of them were working. So this was a lifeline. We invited every state's captain to come to Cleveland and hang out with us as our guests for the induction. And we got them all together in the Happy Dog in the House of Blues and Grog Shop were all the local hosts. So hanging with that group on Friday night, late night at the Happy Dog was just a blast to see them come together. And then the flip side was Saturday night at the induction, being in this amazing venue, Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. The stage has never looked better. The TV production setup was off the charts. And as the show started, being able to stand up and just look around the entire arena filled with people and feel the energy, that was pretty powerful. I think for me, that was the highlight, was being able to see that place full of energy and thinking, wow, we did it. Let's sit back and enjoy.
Gosh, same mutual feeling. It was just so magical. Like I've never seen anything that beautiful. I mean, it was just so amazing. And the performances, you can feel the energy watching HBO Max, but truly being in there. Jasmine, Jennifer Hudson, Taylor Swift, Jesus, just the music was phenomenal.
Yes. You know, I wanted to add, there was one question because it's a quick answer. Everybody knows, you may not know this, but Todd Rundgren decided he didn't want to come and accept his award. And it's actually understandable, but it's maddening. And the reason is he was eligible for years and he wasn't nominated. So you begin to feel rejected. Then he got nominated and he didn't get elected. And that happened 2 years in a row. And he said, you know what, forget it. If they elect me, I'm not coming. And he didn't. He was elected. He did not come. And the question was, has anybody else not shown up intentionally, I guess, when they've been inducted? And the other band that I'm aware of that did not show up, in fact, they wrote us a very nasty letter saying that they almost refused being inducted and it was full of expletives. And it was perfect. Sex Pistols. They said, we don't want to be part of your Hall of Fame. And the fun postscript to that is a dozen years later after induction, Glenn Matlock, one of their guitar players and writers, came by to pick up his statuette. He's become a great friend. He's a massive music historian and he loves the place. Steve Jones came and got his. So they've slowly been picking them up, and I think time has tempered their view. But you got to love that they said, essentially the letter really did say, like, fuck you. We don't want your awards. Hey, it's rock and roll.
I say that seems very on brand. So, question about the ceremony itself. How do you decide who inducts each artist? So throughout the whole night, the speeches and the people who, like, I think of Drew Barrymore and just such a fan of the Go-Go's. How do those pairings come about?
Yeah. So, you know, there needs to be real familiarity. This isn't like, let's cook something up. And the flip side is the awardees can't pick who they want. They can't say, I'd really like my brother to induct me, because ultimately we want to create a show that connects generations and tells stories. And we're also creating an amazing television broadcast property for HBO. Now, what people may not realize is there's a whole team that works on the broadcast. And frankly, our involvement on the broadcast isn't that great. Although if Nwaka has a personal relationship, she helps advance it with different artists, and it comes together when you're talking about collecting and social media and sharing, that, you know, everybody works together. but there's an executive producer on the show that is a TV expert. And then there's two other executive producers. It's the chairman of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Foundation. His name is John Sykes, who is also the president of iHeart Entertainment. And then Joel Perisman, who is the president of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Foundation. And every year, wherever the inductions are, they put this show together. And then there's a whole team that meets to talk about what are the good pairings, how does it work, what's surprising and delightful, like what can you do that is a surprise, and then how do you create that intergenerational sort of connection in those pieces. And where you see that is when Dr. Dre is talking about LL Cool J and what he means to him. You know, that's amazing. And Angela Bassett, many people think of Angela Bassett when they think of Tina because she was the lead in that groundbreaking film in the 80s, What's Love Got to Do with It? And they became close friends and had other wonderful circumstances. And then when you move to the actual performance for that artist, then you have other pairings you can put together. You know, to have Christina Aguilera, what a voice, singing Tina Turner is off the charts. And it exposes Christina Aguilera fans to Tina Turner and Tina Turner fans to Christina Aguilera, kind of feeds itself. And it's funny, we've been on this call now for almost 45 minutes and we've yet to mention Sir Paul McCartney inducting the Foo Fighters and then playing Get Back with them as his backing band. Like, that's a bit of the level of activity that happens at these events and the magnitude that happens. So it's it gets put together in that, and there's a lot of creativity, there's a lot of give and take, and it's think about that. You have a Beatle paying homage to a band that probably, I got to think of their ages, most of their members were born after the Beatles were done, but they're doing it in a way that's authentic and genuine. And then they're both at the top of their game and they're performing together to a sold out arena and being beamed around the world on HBO. So it's a great question. And I don't know if I gave you a really good answer, but the idea is to create, connect yesterday and today. And sometimes that involves taking an artist of today and bringing one from yesterday. Other times it's an artist of an earlier time and somebody today is connecting with them. Brandi Carlile is an amazing Americana country artist. And for her to sing the Everly Brothers is, off the charts, probably the, inspired pairing. And what you do is you find out that she's a big Everly's fan, that that in her set, she does an Everly song occasionally, and there's this sort of affinity. And by the way, winning, 6 Grammys herself doesn't hurt. So that's kind of how it happens.
So how do you take all of these billions of impressions and capitalize on that and convert the online buzz to actual visitation to the museum here to see this amazing exhibit?
I love it. If you hadn't use one of my favorite words, and that's conversion. You've got to convert those connections to something that's meaningful and long-term. And that's the goal. So how do we do it? Well, remember, this is a big funnel. So fan vote alone was a couple million votes. We know, thanks to our killer Salesforce backend that the vote was run through, we know who voted for which artist. And then they're getting a message at some point that says, hey, the votes are in, it's over, and the Go-Go's are going in. Click here for the limited edition Go-Go's. By the way, the Go-Go shirt that sold out multiple times and is on back order is the Go-Go's, and it says Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, and they designed this with us. And then it says, it's about effing time. That thing is selling like crazy. We also designed, I think Nwaka may have helped us make the connections. We worked with LL Cool J's apparel company and created some LL clothing just for induction that have just blown it out. But so using that data, a lot of digital, lot of technology, a lot of, you know, connecting with people. And then it's a question of, are they at the right stage to visit, to join, or to shop? And so identifying how to do that based on their past preferences and actions and creativity is key. We're going to hit everybody that came in for induction from out of the area on coming back to Cleveland. We're going to remarket and just really work to make sure we use the data wisely. The other layer is the B2B stuff. So the groups that Destination Cleveland brought in, those people are looking and they're bringing citywide events to other cities. And they saw that Cleveland can deliver at the highest grand scale and do it well. So they're going to do the same here with us. They do a really good job of bringing those folks by the museum. We frequently pop out, talk to them, tell them, yeah, we're in. If you come here, our place is available. And just kind of that whole creation of an ecosystem. And it's you know, the 1 + 1 = far more than 2. I think that's one way of doing it. Nwaka, am I missing something else on remarketing and growing? I oversimplified it, but the fact is we get clean data and then we use it.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you. That version, whether they're here to visit, what phase are our visitors or are those who are interacting with us, what phase are they in? And I think that's that pivot that we were talking about. This is all of us curating through COVID. Just across the board, we're curating how we reach our fans and make that impact. And it's been amazing to, again, use the technology that we have to work to our advantage. So that's the best way we can convert. And there's not only one way to convert and make those conversions. Even as we're looking at how we convert loans and even in the curatorial space, making that conversion physically with artifacts and winter moments. But to Greg's point, and specifically to the museum, I think you hit it right on the head. It's meeting our fans, meeting those who are in contact where they are. There's some amazing content there all across the board. I mean, so it's beautiful to see where we are now.
Well, we unfortunately have hit our time, but I know we could continue to go on and learn so much more. Congratulations on a phenomenal event for Cleveland. We are so excited for the exhibit. Encourage everyone on the call today, head out to the museum, check out these amazing artifacts.
Rachel,
Greg,
can I add,
thank you.
Come down, see Nwaka's exhibit. And if you live in Cleveland, admission is free.
Free.
You know, thanks to Key Bank. Come visit us, hang out. We're open every single day.
Yes.
Come on over.